The Chicago Bulls got a much-needed win against the Miami Heat last night, snapping a 4-game losing streak. This coming off the heels of rumors of discourse in the locker room, and the Bulls responded to that discourse with getting one of their best team wins, albeit against a weakened opponent missing their best player. Can the Chicago Bulls now build on top of this win, build on top of this chemistry and this playing as a team play style to start stringing together some wins? We're going to talk about all that discourse in the locker room and what it could mean for this roster, and preview the game tonight against the Atlanta Hawks. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
All right, Bulls fans. So the Bulls got a win that we all needed. I think as a fan base, as a team, as an organization, the Bulls needed a win. Now, that win did come against a weakened Miami Heat team, but at the end of the day, a win is a win, and the way that the Bulls went about getting that win is the most important thing. Now, as I've said and I've been saying here for a while, one win really doesn't mean much for where this Chicago Bulls team is right now. They have to start stringing together some wins. They have to start stringing together some solid play. They have to start playing as a team and playing with that heart that the city of Chicago respects from their teams when they play with. This was a step towards that direction, but we got to see much more of this consistently before we can even begin to think and hope that this is going to be something that this team continually shows us. Now, in this game, one of the biggest sticking points in this is that the big three played like a big three, all being over 20 points, combining for 74 points on top of that, all shooting the ball efficiently and moving the ball and playing as a team. This team came in to this game, it seemed like with the game plan that they believed in and wanted to execute. When you look at the amount of assists we had, 24 assists on 40 made baskets, we do want that to be a little bit closer to 30, of course, but this team moved the ball with purpose. If you watch this game outside of just looking at the box score, the way that they moved the ball around the court, the way that they found the open man was something that we've been wanting to see from this team for months at this point. Really dating back to last season when things started falling apart after Lonzo Ball left this team. That is what we wanted to see from this team. And at least for one night, we got that. Yes, there were bad shooting nights from players like Patrick Williams, who was 2 for 8 in this game and made some defensive mistakes, especially in that first half, but came out of that and played much better in the second half defensively, still had a positive plus-minus of plus 13. But the story of this game is going to be, like I said, the play of our big three. DeMar DeRozan, 9 of 14 for 24 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Nikola Vucevic, the most consistent player tonight, hitting big shot after big shot when the Bulls needed it. At times, the Bulls playing through Vooch in a way that we have been asking for the better part of a year, as the Bulls should play from the inside out, playing through Vooch, going to Vooch in the post, and Vooch also hit some key threes. He was 13 of 17 overall from the field, 3 for 5 from the three-point range, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. And if you watch this game, you would see that Vooch was way more locked in defensively. What does he still have his defensive limitations? Of course, that's just the player he is. But he was focused on that defensive end of the ball. Zach LaVine also 7 of 13 for 21 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, only 2 turnovers, and both those turnovers coming in the first half for Zach LaVine. Well, actually in the first quarter, he played 3 quarters of no turnover basketball, which is something we have not seen from Zach LaVine a lot in his career here in Chicago. At the end of the day, it's this. Coby White also chipping in 14 points off the bench, all 14 of those points coming in the first half. But Coby White chipping in other ways defensively. Coby White may be turning that corner that we've been wanting to see from Coby White. This team moved the ball well. They seem like they came in with a focus and a goal to rotate out on the three-point shooters very well. There were a bunch of times where a three-point shooter could have had a wide open shot, but the Bulls hustled to close out on that shot and to contest it even a little bit, get a hand in people's faces. And it was evident. The Miami Heat in this game shooting 15 of 44, only 35% from three-point range. This is the way that the Chicago Bulls need to play. Did they still give up some big nights from players that really shouldn't be scoring that way? Yes, they did. But again, this win was more a win and a step in the right direction for the Chicago Bulls. And if they can turn this into something, then it could go towards turning that season around. Now, we got to see this way more consistently from the Bulls before we can even say or rest in the fact that this is the way the team's going to play. They got to show us. That's one thing that we've been saying. You have to show us. At least in the game against the Miami Heat, it was a step in that direction. But we need to see so much more from this team than just one game against a Heat team missing Jimmy Butler. We have to continue to see it. And tonight against the Atlanta Hawks is a perfect opportunity. An Atlanta Hawks team that got Collins, DeJounte Murray back. Clint Capella will be out, and we'll talk about that game here in a second. But we have to continue to see that from the Chicago Bulls team for games in a row before we're ready. But at least, like I said, in this game, this big three played like a big three. They executed team basketball. The team had a defensive concept that it seemed like every member of the team bought into and executed and wanted to have that standout game. Now, in this game, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. We know the Bulls, of course, got blown out in the second quarter. In the first quarter, they won that quarter 31-21, 10-point lead. In the second quarter, they got outscored by 15, giving up 36 points to the Miami Heat in that second quarter of the game where they only scored 21 points. We went into there was one point in the game where the Heat were on like a 20-4 run. The Chicago Bulls have to get that together, but they responded well, came out after the halftime, won that quarter 36-20, and then lost the first quarter only by 1 point, but the game was decided by then. This Bulls team played a game that we needed to see from them. Now let's see if it continues. Now, this game came off the heels of probably one of the biggest stories as far as discontent we've heard since Zach LaVine really came to the Bulls outside of the Jim Boylen era, well, really since the Jim Boylen era. And that was that there was a halftime blow-up, a meeting, which things may have gotten heated, and some of that heat got pointed in the direction towards Zach LaVine. Now, the thing that I said about this is Zach LaVine being frustrated with where this team is something that I don't have any issue with. You should be frustrated with where this team is, right? Everybody should be frustrated with where this team is right now. But as the player that's getting paid $215 million, you have to look at your play first, right? I'm fine. Like I said, I want Zach LaVine to be upset with the direction of this team. I want him to air that. I want any player on this roster, if they're upset with the direction of this team, to be able to air that out. I want that. I love that, right? That shows heart. That shows that you care. I want to see that from this team, but you have to step up your game first, Zach. If you're going to be upset about this, you have to look at yourself internally and say, hey, what am I going to do to start correcting this? Like I said, at least in the game against Miami Heat, we saw a little bit of that. But I love the comments from the big three a lot in this game. I'm going to go first. We're going to play this clip from DeMar that he said after this game.
Some reports came out about kind of a heated halftime on Sunday. Obviously, you guys were getting crushed that game, so Vooch said it's no big deal. Stuff like that happens all the time. What's your take on what happened Sunday?
I mean, it's the same. You know, it'd be a problem if you didn't have any type of aggressive confrontation some way. It ain't like, you know, nobody throwing blows or throwing chairs or anything like that. So to have any type of confrontation when, you know, it's just a true sign of a competitor. You know, when you want to win, things not going right, a sense of frustration kick in, and, you know, you're around aggressive nature all day, you know, and you got to come out one way or another, especially when you're struggling, and that's all that was.
DeMar, how do you make sure then that that's all it stays and doesn't become something bigger or doesn't linger and grow into something that could divide a team? Because that happens too.
Yeah, I think the teams that allow that to happen is the ones that get caught up with the outside narrative. You know, we know what's going on, what we go through, how we feel, what's said. You know, you can't let the outside people, you know, make it into something that is not, and, you know, you start to pull away that way. As long as it's internal, you know, I feel like if you get in an argument in the house, the argument should stay in the house. You know, if people walking by on the sidewalk and hear it, you know, they're going to think something worse going on, right. You know, but technically it's not their business, you know, and you can't allow them to get in your business and, you know, keep it in the house. And as long as we do that, we'll be fine.
And I love the analogy that DeMar used here, saying that things in-house need to stay in-house. That's what, listen, there are times where you need to argue with your brethren. There are times where you're going to get into a heated debate with your family. It doesn't mean you don't love them any less, but you have to be held accountable. And the fact of the matter is that halftime conversation, that heated blow up, as it's been reported, could be what we look back at too and say, maybe this was the turning point for the Chicago Bulls season. And Zach needed a wake-up call. Listen, You're not you. There's only been ever one GOAT, two if you count Derrick Rose, in a Chicago Bulls uniform. Anybody other than that, if you're lesser than those two players and Scottie Pippen and Joakim Noah, you have to show us first. And Zach LaVine, I think, this may have been a wake-up call for him to realize, hey, player, you got paid. But that getting paid doesn't secure anything for you if you're not executing on a court in a way that is representative and respectful of the city of Chicago and that Chicago Bulls uniform that you put on every single night. And, you know, sometimes those blowups are needed. If you've ever been a competitor in anything, or even not even that, sometimes those blowups are needed even in corporate America. Sometimes you need to just have a come to Jesus moment in which a real conversation is had and people are honest about their thoughts with where things sit. And Zach LaVine kind of supported that as well. And let's get into his comments here.
Up to a standard, not on the contract, you know, and I've done that since day one. Done that since I, you know, signed with the Bulls to enter the league. So I think everybody puts a label on it, but not me. You know, I go out there and compete for myself, my family, my teammates.
You held that stand. I mean, that's
regardless.
Yeah, you talk about that with the max contract. Like we talk about the max contract with you, right? I mean, that's kind of like you're like, what does that have to do with anything, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm sitting here, I answer your questions. You know, it has nothing to do with, you know, how I go out there and compete and play.
Do you feel there was also in that story? And I know we're peppering you with a lot of negativity here, but there was also in that story there was a report that you're disconnected from the team. How do you respond to that?
The same way I responded to it earlier. You know, I got asked the same question twice. I didn't come up with the report. It didn't come from my mouth. You know, it didn't come from DeMar's mouth. It didn't come from Vooch's. So I don't get how these opinions are getting put on me like I said something.
So you feel connected?
If I had something to say about the team, it would come from my mouth.
Yeah.
That didn't come from me. I'm here answering y'all questions. I feel good about the team. Obviously, I'm frustrated because we've lost some games, but you know, I'm just answering you guys' questions.
Yeah. And Zach, I mean, from what I know of you, you're not the type of guy that the camp does the speaking for you.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say it. Unless you say it,
it didn't come from the horse's mouth, did it? So you know. Okay. Everybody has, the right to their own opinion. You know, I'm just here, you know, trying to help us win games, get better. You know, obviously help us improve and get better.
Obviously, you've been around the league long enough to know this is what happens. There's high expectations for this team, and you guys have underachieved at this point. So, I guess the question is, do you feel that this locker room has the leadership and fortitude to pull your guys selves out of this?
I mean, we're the only people that can get us out of here. So if you don't have the confidence to do that, you know, I don't know what we're doing. I think we're all here, you know, for a reason. We're professional. You know, we play for each other. That's what you got to do when you're in a tough situation. You know, it starts with each and every day. We did a good job today. Now we got to go get another one tomorrow.
Now, I do think that Zach kind of shied away from it a little bit by saying, well, you guys didn't hear it come out my mouth. It was a quote, brother. It was a quote of something that came out of your mouth. But I understand the concept and the desire to keep those type of things internal in the Bulls locker room, as they should. As long as we know that those conversations are now happening, we know that things are being aired out and talked about, and the disconnect between Zach, the management, the coaching staff, the players, it's all been felt. Like, regardless if it was said or not, we've been feeling it. It's been evident by the play out there on the court. It was evident when Goran Dragic was saying that they weren't playing for each other. So I get it, and I get wanting to protect that locker room, to protect that family atmosphere, to protect what's going on in-house. Completely understand it. But at the end of the day, the good thing about it is that those conversations are happening. And Zach needs to be held accountable. DeMar needs to be held accountable. Vooch needs to be held accountable. Billy Donovan, Acme, they all need to be held accountable for where this team is currently at, because guess what? They all played a part and a role in this team being where they are currently. And if they're not going to fix those things in turn, it still doesn't mean, let's be clear here, this doesn't mean a move still is not coming. This doesn't mean a move still isn't needed. But at least this is a wake-up call in many ways for everybody on the roster to have that moment to be able to air themselves out. And I'll tell you what, this too. Those players that did air their grievances out about Zach LaVine, to see Zach respond in this way and play a much better game, passing the ball better, moving the ball better, I guarantee you they saw that and said, that's our guy, right? Because arguments don't happen necessarily, especially in a team, if you don't still love and respect each other. And hopefully that's what's happening here on this Bulls team. But sometimes, even respectfully, you got to look somebody in the eye and say, dude, you're not playing good right now. You're hurting us right now. You're not it right now. You got to look at people in their eye and be able to tell them that and have those tough conversations if you're going to pull yourself out of this rut that the Chicago Bulls team is in. So I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that this happened. And, I also want to play a clip from Vooch, and Vooch said this.
No, I mean, obviously it was much needed for us, to get a win. Obviously they were shorthanded, and but I thought we still had to go out there and do it. Obviously have some good players. I thought we did what we had to do on both ends of the floor, especially defensively on their shooters and things like that. But it was good to get a win, get that positive feeling a little bit, especially after that very tough and terrible loss in Minnesota. The way we played. It was pretty bad, so it was needed. So hopefully we can learn from this and now start to do it consistently. We've been there before. We get a win or two, and then it doesn't really change. We just go back to doing the wrong things. Hopefully it's a good lesson for us, and now we can start something good.
And I love the level of awareness from Nikola Vucevic and saying hopefully it's something that they can stick to. Hopefully it's not something that they do one game and then go back to the things that were happening before, because that's what's been happening with this team for so long. They do these things. They have these conversations. They have these moments of looking good and decent, and then they go back to playing the thing. One of the things that I've been saying all this season is that how the Chicago Bulls, when the tough gets going with this team, that they go back to the heavy isolation. They go back to trying to play the hero ball. The Miami Heat took over the lead in this game for a brief moment. And what we saw the Chicago Bulls do in this game is they came back and fought with the team game plan. They fed the ball through Vooch, and that is something that I absolutely want to see this team do a little bit more of. All right, last topic for today. We got to preview the game, the Bulls versus the Atlanta Hawks. Will the team play continue? Will what we saw last night against Miami Heat, especially with the team that's missing Clint Capella, which is huge. I think people miss that. Do we have Javonte? Javonte's energy would have been huge as well in last night's game, but do we have Javonte Green back? But Vooch, without Clint Capella being there, that does not mean, as we've seen before, that you can just ease up and just assume it's going to be easy. But do we continue playing through Vooch? Is this another game in which Vooch is able to have the impact and the Bulls have the level of focus to go through him on possessions like they did in throughout all the game against the Miami Heat? This Atlanta Hawks team beat us, right? And they beat us with missing DeJounte Murray. They beat us with missing Collins. They beat us with missing two of their key pieces. They have more of those pieces now, still missing a key piece in Clint Capella, but can the Bulls get their revenge against the Atlanta Hawks tonight? Can the Bulls step up and continue this level of play and playing as a team? Playing as a team. That team basketball, that concept is what's going to be. We don't have a generational talent on this team. And because of that, the team basketball concept is going to be what puts us back in the conversation, back to be able to compete with the better teams in the Eastern Conference. The Atlanta Hawks are having a rough go about it as well. It's not as rough as the Chicago Bulls, but it hasn't been easy for them either. Can the Chicago Bulls come in? DeJounte Murray's out there. That may be Zach LaVine's friend, but I tell you what, he's not about to take it easy on Zach. He's not about to take it easy. Can Zach LaVine keep that up? Can the level of defense that's something that we've seen from Zach play, can the bench production step back up? Andre Drummond got in the game against the Miami Heat because Derrick Jones Jr. went down with an ankle injury. Can Drummond now take advantage of playing more minutes, right? Is Billy Donovan going to go to Drummond? Drummond showed some things last night. Not a lot, but he did show some things. Ayo Dosunmu, what's going on with Ayo? We all said and before that Ayo's kind of Trae Young's kind of Ayo's son. Do we see that level of play? Does he go to Ayo a little bit more? What's going on with Ayo? Why did he only play 5 minutes in the last game? All these questions, but whatever comes of it, whatever the minutes rotation is, whatever happens, can this team continue playing as a team? Can the big three continue playing like a big three? Can they get the other members of the team involved? Can they pass, move the ball, and not just play for themselves, but play for each other? We'll see what happens against the Atlanta Hawks tonight. Like I said, they got that. Bogdanovich killed us last game. He's going to be coming off the bench now. We got DeJounte Murray back in that game. John Collins, who's had big games against the Bulls before. The Bulls need to lock in. They're on the second of a back-to-back, and it could be easy to come in and expect low energy from this team. But I'll tell you what, how about let's do this? Let's not hold that standard to this team. Let's not give them the out of saying it's the second night of a back-to-back. Your season is in the toilet. You don't have the caveat to say it's the second night of a back-to-back. You got to dig in. You got to figure it out. You got to find the energy. You have to find the determination. You have to find the drive to come in here and execute and play with energy against the Atlanta Hawks. There are no excuses for this team. Can they do it? I guess we'll see tonight. And you can see right here as we're going to break it all down on Chicago Bulls Central with our pregame, halftime hangouts, and postgame shows all going down tonight. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text and or voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red. And peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.